Awesome. So Quan just talked to you about incentive design, and we're doing this within bigger systems. We're going to talk a little bit more about the how. Caveat, the experience is also in the blockchain space, not in the academic space, but there is an entire field that's growing around incentive-centered design, and there's a number of kind of interdisciplinary fields in this space, and a number of people are actually already thinking about and doing this. We've talked about in a lot of conversations over the past day. So quick overview of kind of what I'm talking about. Working within a system to try and counter incentives by telling people they shouldn't want what they're incentivized to want doesn't work very well. What works a lot better is to have incentives that are consistent with the goals of the parties in the system, and to engineer those incentives in order to make sure that we can counter and balance undesirable incentives to make everyone kind of move in the direction that is best overall. So a good example of countering systems to make sure that you're balancing one set of forces with another set of forces happens all the time in engineering. And so taking a startup approach to creating and engineering these incentives can be very high leverage. You can use kind of an 80-20 approach, getting 80% of the benefit for 20% of the work. So at a very high level, rough MVP of doing this design approach would be to identify the outcome, to identify the missing incentives, audit the incentives you do already have, create a low-cost incentive force that you want to add within the system, and then ask, is there a faster way, easier way for me to do that, and iterate on your proposed incentive force until you have an MVP iterative experiment you can run in order to try and move the market, move the set of incentives that you care about in order to better align them with desired outcomes. A worked example, just pulling one of the bottlenecks that we discussed yesterday in psychology around making sure that published research is reliable, aka reproducible. So there's a lot of missing incentives there. The main one, incentivizing researchers in order to make their results reproducible and connecting that incentive back and forth. You have a number of leverage points, including publishing and kind of the enabling auditors to go and demonstrate where incentives are, where results actually are reproducible. And so a potential incentive force you could add here is a way of visualizing this and utilizing the press cycle around publishers in order to feed back the incentive for researchers to make sure that their work is reproducible at the beginning. So create a bounty board, prioritize it based on the content that's going to be most interesting from a publisher and press perspective. Create a very low-cost website in order to stack rank and visualize which things are actually getting reproduced and which publishers are actually doing the best job of publishing reproducible works. Use press and Twitter bots and other sorts of really low-cost interventions in order to gain visibility for this. And then you have a system where you are applying pressure, you're creating a new incentive that moves the whole overall system and leverages other players within your ecosystem in order to achieve the desired outcome. One hypothetical solution, one that was actually described earlier in practice, is things like fast grants. Creates a new incentive for doing work quickly without waiting for kind of longer term research funding. And that's the recap. I think I have 1 minute left. Use incentive alignment. My posit here is this is a really useful tool that we should be using to break through some of our bottlenecks. Thank you so much.